2012 is the 100th year. He was born in 1912 on September 21st.
Well, I know a lot of Chuck's characters. Well, let's list a few for people who maybe don't know just how much in the pop culture Chuck's imagination is wandering through it everywhere. So
for just a few generations.
Yeah. So the first one was Sniffles.
Well, you know, actually, that was his first character. The first cartoon that he directed was in 1938, and he started directing in 1937, The Night Watchman, and so that was a little cat.
Right, who looks sort of like Sniffles.
It's sort of that evolution that Sniffles was really his first character that he focused on in the late 30s. But, you know, the ones that most people know are like Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and Elmer Fudd and Porky Pig. He co-created those. He's referred to one of the five fathers, along with Tex Avery and Friz Freleng and Bob Clampett and Bob McKimson. They all sort of took the characters in different ways, that core cadre of characters. But then Chuck and his writers, like Mike Maltese and Ted Pierce, it developed on their own. Chuck created Roadrunner and Coyote, and that was in 1949 when that first happened. He created Pepe Le Pew.
Pepe Le Pew,
yes. And Pepe Le Pew, Michigan J. Frog, because they know this singing frog, you know, and almost everybody, when you start talking about Michigan Frog, you're talking about Hella My Baby, Hella My Honey, and to think of it was 1955, and they just moved into the new studios, the new Termite Terrace at Warner Brothers that they're calling now. But you know, think about that. And then 40 years later, Chuck did another Froggy Evening in 1995, the year that they moved back into those studios.
Oh,
how serendipitous was that? So, in fact, the WB, the now defunct WB, the head of Time Warner, CEO, called Chuck up in 1993 and said, "Chuck, you know what? There's so much brilliance in that cartoon. We would like to use Michigan J. Frog as our spokesperson on the air." And Chuck, without a hitch, said, "I think you do need a spokesvibian."
He and Mike Maltese wrote the Michigan Rag, that song.
Yes, they did.
Which I think is cool.
And you know, Mike, go ahead. I want to see the high kicks. Come on now.
That's okay. All right, so
well, you know, Mike Maltese was absolutely brilliant, and so was Ted Pierce. But I think there was something about when you get together with somebody that you just know exactly what they're going to do, and they work so well together to develop both characters and story. And I don't remember meeting Mike Maltese. I know that I probably did meet him when I was younger, but from what I understand, he was a very serious man in life, but he just saw things so differently that he would come up with these amazing gags. And so, you know, some of the things. And they were good
partners for that.
And they were. They played off each other constantly.
Now, when would they come out with? How was the timing in terms of story versus character, and when were they going back and forth with each other?
Well, you know, there was always, from Chuck's world, you always had to develop the character first. That was the most important thing, is to define and to understand who Bugs Bunny is in this cartoon. What are the boundaries that Bugs Bunny's going to have? What are the rules of the film, which really come out of the rules of the character? And like the Roadrunner never is nefarious to the Coyote. The only thing that he can do is run away or beep beep. I mean, really, that is it. Now, there are times where a beep beep, it can be quite destructive to the Coyote. But really, the Coyote is
his own worst enemy.
Own undoing.
Yes.
You know, whether it's running too fast or running off a cliff or going back to that Acme company over and over and over again. You know, I mean, really, rocket shoes. I just, you know,
write a letter. Nothing's working. You know, quality control.
Well, you know what? It actually does exactly what it's supposed to do. You know, if you think about it, what is the things that earthquake. Birdseed, the earthquake pills that he eats, that the Roadrunner eats, And then he only finds out later that the little thing downstairs is not effective on Roadrunners.
Oh.
After the Coyote then has consumed the entire bottle and goes on, you know. Yeah, so, yes. But the acting company's okay. It's just the Coyote's execution is bad.
Okay. Fair enough.
Hubie and Bertie are another one. Yes,
now
that
that's interesting because I was just going to point out the chronology and the expansion of Chuck's, you know, what he was able to do and how he did it. How he started out with Sniffles, and they were kind of Disney-esque.
Very, very cutesy, and that's what
Very
he said.
cutesy.
He said he learned from people that were doing, and Disney was one of the greats of the time. But.
Right, and so he started out with that, and then I had read that he did Draft Horse,
Yes.
and he saw people laughing at that cartoon, and it inspired him to really change his direction, to really try to inspire laughter more.
And you know, it wasn't, I think the big turning point in that cartoon was that it was not slapstick, and it wasn't cutesy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the times that Bugs and Daffy at that time were very slapstick, and they would kind of, Daffy was all over the place. And I think what Chuck saw is that people loved, like that dancing horse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as he's dancing, there is something stoic about him, but the animation is so
genuine.
brilliant.
Yeah.
He is. And so I think there was, all of a sudden now he felt that he could bring his sophistication to it and do more sophisticated gags. And so that's the way, so he went and did things like the Dover Boys,
Mm-hmm.
which was actually inspired by a set of books. And going back to the books that he read forever and ever, there was a set of books called the Rover Boys that were
Mm-hmm.
published in I think around the turn of the century, about 1900 to 1910 or something like that. And he said they were probably they're sort of what are the Bobbsey twins or something like that of the 50s, you know,
Mm-hmm.
those things. It was that sort of methodology, but back, and it was called the Rover Boys.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that they were absolutely the worst books that he ever read. Because, I mean, the linguistics and every time that the evil guy would come out, he would introduce them as you know, that cad and thief. Every single time in the book, which, come on. So he brought that into the Dover Boys, and Dan Backslide, who was the evil,
Right.
you know, villain in that, you know, that Dan Backslide, cad and thief, every single time that he comes out. You know, and talking to someone like Eric Goldberg, who is one of the great Disney artists these days, and animators, he looked back at the Dover Boys in 1942, and he said that was one of the big transition times, because there was a technique that Chuck started using called smear.
Oh, right.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it was a huge leap of all of a sudden there's this drama of these key poses, and they'd get in this thing, and then they'd smear over to the other side very quickly, and so the actual animation was a very smeared drawing, but it would create that real effect of movement and drama, and then another key pose.
And the powers that be at, or if it's 1942, that was Schlesinger.
Schlesinger, yeah.
Not into it.
Well, they certainly didn't. They didn't.
Think
It's
that-
this is supposed to be funny, guys. You know, this is not. Don't be stylistic. Don't be artistic.
artistic.
Exactly. You know, just get them done.
Mm-hmm.
But they still got away with a lot. And he said, really, the only time the people that were saying no, or when they try to put something in that were probably a little too racy at the time.
Or, because I read a lot of times that one of the producers, whenever he said, it's not going to be funny, like Pepe Le Pew, a French skunk isn't funny, and so he did it. And then...
Well, that was Eddie Seltzer.
Seltzer,
Eddie
right.
Seltzer was the...
Bull's not funny.
That's it.
Bullfights
There's nothing
aren't
funny about bullfighting.
Yeah, yeah. Every time he did that, he would create something else just to prove him wrong, and that would be his most successful thing to date.
Yeah,
it was always inspiration to be told he couldn't do something. Probably because Chuck wasn't raised with the philosophy of it can't be done.
You can't be done. That's very true.
And I think that it is the killer of creativity to be told you can't do something. But yet, so
if you
many
believe
of
it.
Yeah.
If you believe it.
Right.
And I think Chuck always was told, if he was told no,
He made it work.
he'd look back and he'd say,
It
well, you
sounds
know
like a
what,
challenge.
it does.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you were talking about with Eddie Seltzer coming in and saying there's nothing funny about bullfights. He was in a session with Mike Maltese and Eddie Seltzer, and as Chuck said, all of a sudden he looked over and there was a furious dwarf standing in in the doorway, because Eddie was this little man that never knew anything about animation.
So he invented Toro, the bull.
Yes, it was. I mean, in there it says Toro, but that just means bull. But
Right.
it was the bull that he did, and so he went and actually watched bullfighting. I mean, they did the research to find out, and it's a very brutal
And part of the
sport, but
soundtrack
it's-
is in the cartoon. Like
Yes.
from Barcelona or
Yes,
something. They actually
absolutely.
used some real bullfighting
They
sound
did,
effects.
and the authenticity that he brought to the cartoons was what brought everybody to the same experience. That there was something there that was believable.
So we also have Witch Hazel and Gossamer
Yes.
and
Marvin Martian, we haven't
Martian,
met that,
right?
absolutely, and Ralph and Sam, and
Yes, I love. They're two of my favorites.
yes,
They're less mean-spirited
Morning,
than
Ralph.
the experience.
Morning, Sam.
Wile E, Coyote, and Roadrunner. I
Yes.
feel like Sam and Ralph was more like, it's just a job.
That was what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
When they clocked in, morning Ralph,
Yeah.
morning Sam,
Yeah.
and then off they go, trying to get the sheep.
Yeah. Oh,
But,
I did.
yes,
I loved those.
very.
If you want some originals of Chuck's, their family was nice enough to offer some originals for us to sell, so that's something you can check out too on artinsights.com. Thank you so much for watching, and stay creative, because obviously Chuck was all about creativity. Thanks.
Here,
Thank
here.
you.
Well
Yay.
done.
Yes. Okay.